So we welcome you. We are in a series called Kingdom Culture, and we're talking about sowing dreams. And how many of you guys know that the moment that the Spirit came into you or was poured into you, something happened in which the way you viewed yourself, you just kind of felt like you were, how can I say it, that God wanted to do something important with your life. Can you guys relate to that? Like, God encounters you, and all of a sudden you just feel like, oh man, like He really wants to use me. He really has a plan for my life, and I really want to know what that plan is. And it's powerful, and it's awesome. And so what we've been doing is going over some themes in the Bible that are going to help us have what God, that dream He put in us, have that come across to the world. And we really want that to take place. Because how many of you guys know, and I just feel this so powerfully, God has given you salvation, but God hasn't given you destiny. He's given you a vision of your destiny, but how many of you guys know that you're the author of your life? How many of you guys know that people have gone to the grave without doing what they were supposed to do? Can you guys see it? Okay, how many of you guys want to be one of those people? I'm telling you, it's not handed to you on a silver platter. What is handed to people on a silver platter? When you were a baby, I'm telling you, there was a bottle that was made for you, and it was put in your mouth, and you didn't have to do anything. All you had to do was open your mouth. But as an adult, how many of you guys know that you actually have to go get your own food? Is everybody getting their own food? Thank God, right? And see, this destiny stuff, I don't want anybody in here to pretend that it's a bottle that gets put in your mouth one day. Well, in time, this bottle will just be put in your mouth. No, it doesn't happen that way. And I want to just kind of go over with you guys just some more themes in the midst of this kingdom culture that is here. And I went over this with you guys last week, and I want to go over it with you again, that even when somebody is speaking, there's a way to take advantage of what somebody is saying. And we belong to an entertainment culture where people come into church and view the sermon as if it's a television show. They either agree or disagree, or they were entertained or not entertained. But how many of you guys know that there are things that could be said today that could set the course of your life on fire? That God might have something for you to say, that He might say something today that He can't tell you in your alone time because you're not open to hearing it in your alone time, right? And the very thing that's going to just unlock stuff might be said today. And so I talked to you guys last week about how you just need to ask yourself this question before a sermon. Could God speak to me today? Is what I need to hear here in the room, and it could be said. And everybody needs to answer that question for yourself. Yes, it's possible. And if that's possible, then what is it you probably want to do during a sermon? Take notes. Thank you. Why? Because so many times we'll go into a sermon and we'll hear the sermon and we'll nod our heads at it, right? And we don't want to be like the Israelites who had the law and nodded their head at the law and said, oh yeah, we know the law, but they didn't do the law. So we don't want to go into a sermon, hear a sermon, and not be able to apply it correctly. So that's what we want to do. And when you're taking notes, what do you want to pay attention to? The Holy Spirit. You want to pay attention as the Holy Spirit is pricking your heart during the sermon. And you want to highlight that note. And then you want to take that note home and you want to get before God and you want to say, hey, God, man, when this was said, I felt something. What am I supposed to do with it? Could you imagine if somebody actually applied the sermon to their life? How far you'd be in your own destiny and personal development. If every time you got up that you went the full 99 yards with that thing and you got the wisdom of the Lord in your life when you sat down with Him and said, God, what does this look like? How do I do this? And you made these little minor adjustments to your life for an entire year. You do that 14 times a year, you'd be a completely different person by next year. How many of you guys want to be a different person next year? It's possible, and it's a lot easier than we think, but we're just not aware and as intentional as we could be. That's why taking the time to go over it with you now, right? So everybody in here has the ability to be aware and intentional. What could be said could really change your life. Not because I'm saying it, but what you do with it after it's said. I'm a fan of what I say, too. I think it's all life-changing. And I'm challenged by what I say, and to the best of my ability, I want to walk it out too with the Lord. So last week we went over this. It says, do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever a man sows, this he will also reap. And now we talked about last week how we think that's usually it's just used with money and it's just used with bad circumstances. But how many of you guys know that the blessings in somebody's life that somebody has, most likely they sowed it. They sowed it and then they reaped it. But what we like to do in our minds is we like to say, this person's blessed, this person's not blessed. This person, God's really, really doing something in their lives, and this person, no. It's not that. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. What a man sows, a man reaps. How many of you guys know even your God encounters? Draw close to me and I will draw close to you. You want to sow? You want me to touch your life? Draw near to me and I'll draw near to you. You sow into this and you'll reap that. And almost every promise in the Bible has a condition on it. His love is unconditional, but his promises are conditional and require something. And so his promises aren't a bottle that are placed in your mouth. They're different than that. But I think our experience oftentimes as a Christian, how many of you guys know when you were an early Christian, pretty much like it was really easy because it just seemed like God would just show up like that and it was just here and it's just that and you just received and it's because you were a baby. We were all baby Christians once. And life's really easy when you're a baby, but as you mature, more is expected, right? And so that's pretty exciting. And so I just want to share with you guys this morning what you believe about yourself has a lot to do with what it is you do. When I was in college, when I was in high school, I struggled with school because, number one, it was hard to sit still. Number two, I was just bored out of my mind. And I did not produce the grades that if you looked at, somebody would say, wow, this kid is really intelligent. I produced the grades that were not so smart, okay? And so when I look at my grades and I looked at my performance, I came to the conclusion that I was dumb, okay? And there was one semester I remember where I got a 1.2. How many of you guys know that that's not 120%? Right? It was low. And I'm looking, and I failed Spanish. How many of you guys have ever taken Spanish? It's supposedly the easiest language to learn, and I failed it big time. I actually dropped out of it because I was copying off somebody, but when we got to the part where you no longer had to write it out and you actually had to speak it, the only thing I knew how to ask was how to go to the bathroom. That was it. Once the quiz left that, I was done. And then I went off to college. And I was in college and I was an art major. Nothing against art majors, but I can draw a picture, and that's what I did for half of my degree. Draw pictures, clay, paint, all that stuff. It was awesome. When I got to seminary, and believe it or not, the art degree did not prepare me for grad work. Now I'm in seminary, and I feel like a duck out of water, and I am just scared and terrified because I didn't think I was an intelligent person. Now, my intelligence, up until this point, the external stimulus of what I got was, you're not intelligent. And so when I got to seminary, and I had to take Greek and Hebrew is one of the hardest languages to learn, I had to change my mind about what I was, or I wasn't going to make it. And this is so interesting. I said, God, you called me to be a minister. To be a minister, you have to learn Hebrew. That means I'm going to pass this class. Somehow we're going to pass this class. Will you help me? Will you help me pass this class? I couldn't ask him for help without working hard myself. I had to study. And I did study a lot. And I had these note cards, and I had a stack of them about this thick, and I was a waiter at the time. They were in my car, and I'd pick them up, and I would just go through them all the time, memorizing these Hebrew words. And when I got a C in Hebrew, I was so happy. I couldn't believe that I passed. Was I the same person? Absolutely. What happened? I had a vision in front of me, and I had to change the way I thought about myself. I don't know the way you guys think about yourself, but I do know this. If you're a Christian, Jesus lives in you. I do know this. If you're a Christian, you have access to the wisdom of God. If you're a Christian, you have access to every spiritual blessing. But your life up until this point might not point you in that direction. Ephesians 5:15 through 17 says this, therefore be careful how you walk, not as unwise men, but as wise, making the most of your time here, that's Kairos season, because the days are evil. So then do not be foolish, but understand what the will of the Lord is. There's something to your life that is supposed to make an impact on this world while you're here that's supposed to bring him glory. You guys agree with that? I'm not up here saying, let's get blessed for ourselves. Let's get blessed for him so that we can make an impact on this world. And I'm convinced of this. Hope deferred makes the heart sick. How many of you guys know that a lot of people have problems because they don't have hope? The reason why they don't have hope is because they're not doing what it is they're supposed to be doing. And they don't like their job, and they don't like their life. And their hope's been deferred, and they've forgotten the dream that was in their heart in the first place. And they gave up on it because resistance came their way, and so they just chucked it. But how many of you guys know that there's something on the planet that God is calling you to? And it's not going to be handed over to you. I wish it was. I wish that's how it was. I wish that the moment you got baptized, you came up and destiny was put into your lap. But that's not the way it is, because he doesn't give destinies to babies. They would completely wreck them. In Mark 8:35, it says this, "For whoever wishes to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake and the gospel's will save it." And then John 21:16 says this, "He said to him again," this is Jesus talking to Peter after he rose from the dead, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" He said to him, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." He said to him, "Shepherd my sheep." There's something more to loving God than just saying you love him. How many of you guys know that to love God, he's actually called you to do something? Okay? So the expression of our love for God isn't simply our word saying, yeah, I love him, is that there's some sort of calling on your life that he predestined to be there, that you're meant to walk in. And I don't know what that is for you. Do you want to know what it is for me? No, don't laugh, all right? I want to go to Broadway. No, I'm joking. What I want to do with my life is I want my life, I want to somehow be able to take God's wisdom, apply it to the church, and change the way people do church in this nation. How many of you guys know that's not going to be handed to me? I'm not waiting for that to come to pass. I'm not like, well, in time, maybe in my 60s, maybe in my 70s, maybe in my, no. That takes such tremendous focus and vision and work to actually have that come to pass. And if that's really my vision, if that's really what I believe I'm called to, how many of you guys know I'm going to pray for it? I'm going to pray like it's up to him. I'm going to work like it's up to me to see that thing come to pass. Because this is, I just feel like we just ignore these things that are in the parables. And in Matthew 25:14-15, it says, "For it is just like a man about to go on a journey who called his own slaves and entrusted them his possessions to them. And to one he gave 5, to another 2, and to another 1, each according to his own ability. And then he went on his journey." Where's the master when they're given responsibility? He's not there. Who's the responsibility on? No. But that's what we usually say. Well, God's going to do it. Let God's will come. He'll just do it. No, he gave his possessions to you. Now you do it. Right? He left and he said it'd be better that I leave and the Holy Spirit come and I put you guys in charge. Here, while I'm gone, you do my will. And so is God's will going to come to pass without participation with you? Absolutely not. I want you guys to feel the weight of the responsibility of the ball that's in your lap, because I'd hate for the ball to be in your lap and you think it's in his. Forgive me for how general I'm speaking, and people could say, yeah, but, what about this specific situation? Yeah, but what about this? How many of you guys know you guys had things come to pass in your life because somebody else was praying for you? How many of you guys know some of you came to Christ because of the prayers of a grandmother? And you might say this, well, I didn't do anything. God just showed up. No, somebody sowed. Somebody sowed. And you got to reap for it. And so, there's a place where, I said earlier that there's a place where you just need to stand firm, and God isn't expecting you to run very hard. But when you're not standing firm, he does expect you to run hard, as if this is a race and you're out to win it. And you're out to win it. And in Proverbs 24, 30 through 34, it says this, "And I passed by the field of the sluggard and by the vineyard of the man lacking sense, and behold, it was completely overgrown with thistles. Its surface was covered with nettles, and its stone wall was broken down." This man is passing by somebody's field. It looks like it's been destroyed, okay? And he's a wise man, so he's looking for wisdom. So he says, "Hey, God, what's this all about? What happened to this man's field?" "When I reflected upon it, I looked and received instruction. A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest. Then your poverty will come as a robber and your want like an armed man." Like, I just want to say something. And I hope no one takes offense to this. Is it okay? Most things make sense. How many of you guys know that it's okay to read a book about finances if you want to have more? Is that okay to say that? It's okay for you to get knowledge in something that you want more of. How many of you guys know that it's like, okay, like, I know how much I weigh and why I weigh as much as I weigh. It ain't a mystery. And it makes sense. And at night, I'm not sitting there saying, "Father, I just cut off 20. Cut off 20 pounds tomorrow." You hear me? A lot of our financial situations make sense, and we never went and got wisdom. You guys know how important money is? And I'm not trying to be noble here. Everything takes money. Your dreams are going to take money. It's this thing that that's changing people's lives, sending them on that mission trip. Did you guys see how many zeros are there? And it's worth it, but it takes money. We got a roof. I appreciate that there's no snow. Thank God. But you know what it's going to take to fix the roof? Money. Do you know what it takes to feed people? Money. And we can't be all noble. Money's not important. Money is very important. And it's okay to read a book about it and how to steward it better. And it's okay to take classes on it to figure out how you can manage it better. What's not okay is a little resting, a little folding of the hands, and then that area of your life looks like somebody came in and destroyed it. It's real easy. You want to know how to get exalted? According to the Bible, you just humble yourself. It's real easy. And most things in our lives make sense, and I assure you, destiny applies to it. Your destiny, where you're at in your destiny. Can I tell you this, just real quick? If I was to follow you around just for 24 hours, maybe 48 hours, and write down what it is you do in those 48 hours, I could tell you whether or not you're going to walk in your destiny. It's that simple. And if you want a destiny, you got to have a schedule that looks like you want a destiny. Is that too strong? I can assure you it's true. The dues that people have paid to get where they're at are incredibly high. But I think some people think that you're just waiting for God to just put that in their lap. And I can assure you, He wants to tell you exactly how to do it. But He's going to tell you how to do it. These slaves who were given these possessions, the person who waited around was the one who got in trouble. The others went to work and got it done immediately. And I don't want your theology to create a place where your entire field gets ruined. I don't want you to think that, well, this is God's responsibility when it was your responsibility. There are some things that only God can do. You're absolutely correct. But you need to steward them correctly until He moves. There are only some doors that God can open, yes, but have the bags packed. Do everything you possibly can on your own until that door opens. Do you hear what I'm saying? I think your health and your finances are so big for us to be able to steward those well before we're trusted with destiny. Sowing. What is it that you want to sow to see these dreams come to pass? Well, you want to have a vision. You want to be able to apply knowledge, the application of knowledge. You want to apply good works, and you also want to guard your heart. And you will reap answered prayer, well springs of life, harvest of blessing, the good work that you're supposed to do, and discipline. How many of you guys know before you're trusted with the good work you were created for, according to Ephesians 2:10, there's a lot of other little good works that you need to do before you get the good work. And yes, you are not saved by works. So this conversation drives me nuts. Some people think that because they were saved by faith, that everything else comes by faith. But how many of you guys know that faith without works is dead? I didn't make that up. That's a good line. But that's what James says. And so if you want to, a lot of people know these like one-liners, and I think sometimes we're like, yeah, we you know this, where there's no vision, the people are unrestrained. You know that verse? Yeah. Do you have a vision from God? And has it caused discipline to overtake your life? Just read it to you. Where there is no vision, the people are unrestrained, but happy is he who keeps the law. What's it saying? The person who has a plan, the person who has a vision, discipline follows the vision. Because how many of you guys know what you want out here? And you know it's from God and it's the purpose of your life. And he is the center of your motivation. And I hope you guys hear that. I only have a little bit of time left on this planet to get done what it is that he set before me. And when I stand before him, I want to know that I did what he set before me. And he's awesome and he died for me. So he's worth me getting discipline in my life and doing what it is that he's called me to do. How many of you guys think God's worth it? Spending the rest of eternity with him. And according to the parables, I don't want to be the guy who didn't do anything with my life. Where there is no vision, the people are unrestrained. Where there is vision, discipline comes. And it's that discipline that comes in which you will be entrusted with your destiny. When you have no vision, you have no passion. With no passion comes no discipline. Do you guys believe that? How many of you guys have ever been disciplined in your life? Let's just go back to body weight. How many of you guys have ever been on a diet and have been passionate about the diet and disciplined around losing weight? Yeah? And what was the goal? The goal for some of you, maybe it was to fit into some old clothes. Maybe it was because you were single. Come on. When I was single, I was a beast. I'm going to get it. I was like, my wife's going to be good looking. My wife saw me, actually. Saw me in the gym lifting. I was thinking about you the whole time. I didn't even know you yet. I'm like, I'm getting this thing ready. Right? I don't mean to make you blush. But you know it's true. She was over there on the bicycle. She's like, I'm getting this thing ready. And we were in the same room at college, just getting our bodies ready. Because I wanted to be a good steward of what I was going to look like when I met my wife. I'm being serious. Is that okay? And I had a vision. I lost 60 pounds in a year. My sophomore year. After my freshman year, some people put on the freshman 15. That would have been nice. I think I put on the freshman 45. I wasn't ready at that point to meet you. But man, I had a vision. I was like, you know what? This is what I'm going to look like, and I'm going after it. And discipline came, and it was there. Or maybe some of you guys have you guys ever taken what's the name of that financial course? Dave Ramsey. I've had people take this course in here, and my wife and I, well, let me say this. My wife, I don't want to get myself in on that. My wife has followed some of those principles, and it's great, and they work. She had a vision for the finances. She had a vision of no debt. And what happens when you have a vision for no debt? Discipline comes, and bam, then you have it. But if you don't have a vision, then you probably lack discipline. Is that simple? Do you see how that makes sense? This isn't rocket science, and at the same time, we don't want to live this, well, God will just rescue me, God will just rescue me. I can be a terrible steward, and then God will just rescue me. And I don't want you guys to apply that way of thinking with your destiny. I don't want you guys to think that you can be a terrible steward of your destiny and that time will just bring it to you, because that's not true. Busting your rump will bring that right to your lap. And why do you think we need perseverance? Because it's seasons upon seasons upon seasons of diligence and vision and discipline. And all of a sudden you find yourself in the place where you were meant to be. Is that cool? So the first thing that we need to do is get a vision for what it is God has called us to. And may I recommend this? I recommend you pray about it and have him tell you what it is. Because hope deferred makes the heart sick, but desire fulfilled is a tree of life. And so when I said this earlier, I think some people are just not doing good because their hope's been deferred. And then they look around their life to see why it is they feel the way they do, and they might look at people, they might look at circumstance. But can we just be honest? Hope's been deferred. The dream, the destiny has been laid aside, and there's something wrong because, have you guys ever seen Back to the Future 2? And Marty McFly goes into an alternate 1985, and Biff's in charge, and he's got like his own... You guys remember? And the hotel's called Biff's. And he's there, and he's like, this isn't right. Everything about this is wrong. This isn't right. This isn't the real 1985 I'm supposed to be in. And I believe that's what happens to people is when we don't engage and walk in our destiny and begin to gain ground, and our hope gets deferred because we're not walking. We're like, man, something's wrong. Something doesn't feel right. Everybody knows this verse. Can I read it in its context? Proverbs 4:23 through 27. Watch over your heart with all diligence, for from it flows the springs of life. The next 3 lines tell you how to do it. Put away from you a deceitful mouth, and put devious lips far from you. Let your eyes look directly ahead, and let your gaze be fixed straight in front of you. I had no idea that that's what it meant. It's right there for us to look at. Make sure you watch your mouth, because as you're walking out your destiny, people are going to say a lot of things to you. And a lot of things are going to come against you. The only thing you got to do is make sure you watch your mouth. And don't speak deceitfully against other people. Is that cool? Look at the next one. Let your eyes look directly ahead. What is it a call to? Vision again. You look at your path. You look at what you're being called to, not what they're called to, not what they're saying. Now, you look straight ahead at what God's called you to. And what does it promise? You watch the path of your feet, and all your ways will be established. Whose ways? His ways or your ways? Your ways. Why? Because you got your vision from him, and he wants to establish that thing. And everybody knows this verse, Hosea 4:6. My people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge. Because you have rejected knowledge, I also will reject you. This is coming from the Old Testament prophet speaking. I also will reject you from my priest, for being my priest. Since you have forgotten the law of your God, I also will forget your children. How many of you guys know that Hosea, they actually had the law? Did you guys know that? The law isn't missing at this point. It's not like, we lost the law, big deal, we'll just keep going. No, they had the law. They were running through the sacrifices. They were doing a version of what the law said. And he says that you perish for lack of knowledge, but it was actually the application of true knowledge that they weren't doing. They had the knowledge, but they weren't doing anything with it. They had the law written down for them, but they didn't apply it. Just like people can have a Bible, people can have sermons, people can have YouTube and everybody and all that stuff, but it doesn't matter unless you apply the knowledge. Did you know that you've been taught through school that if you just sit and listen to somebody talk, it must make a difference? How many of you guys went to 13 years of schooling, right? Did you know that they were teaching you that if you sit here and listen to me speak, that somehow it's going to make a difference in your mind? How many of you guys know that's not true? That's why there are things like homework and tests and all that stuff, because it was them having to put the test in front of you that got you to do something else besides just listen to somebody speak. It's the application of knowledge. Seminary did not prepare me for ministry. Ministry prepared me for ministry. There was nothing that anybody could stand up and tell me to prepare me for this job. It was the first few years I was like, what? It's like, this happens in a church? Okay. It was just a good crash course in what it actually means to be in ministry. Hosea 8:12 says this, though I wrote for him 10,000 precepts of my law, they regard them as a strange thing. So they definitely had the law, but didn't pay attention to it. And I went over this with you guys last week. I wanted to run it by you again. Let us not lose heart in doing good, for in due time we will reap if we do not grow weary. You know, I was called to be a minister, and everybody's calling is different. Some people are called to own their own business. Some people are called to write books. Some people are called and to work in a specific place and have influence in that place and win that place for Christ. There are so many different callings that are out there. Some people are called to be encouragers. Some people are called to be teachers. And you know what's amazing is he says, whatever you do it as if you're doing it for the Lord. So everybody has a calling. And your number one calling is actually to do it as if you're doing it for God, right? And before I became a minister, how many of you guys know that I was a children's minister? I was a youth minister. I was a child volunteer. I was a youth volunteer for years. I did good in the direction that I knew God had called me. And I didn't sit there and tell people, well, one day I'm going to be a pastor of a church. I went and pastored children. I went and pastored the youth, and they weren't stepping stones for me. I poured my heart into those places. And what is the direction that you're supposed to be headed, and begin to sow good into the direction that you're supposed to go? I'll read this one, and then we'll be done. It's your assessment of yourself reveals belief. Proverbs 23, 6-8. Everybody knows this verse. It says, do not eat the bread of a selfish man or desire his delicacies, for as a man thinks within himself, therefore so he is. He says to you, eat and drink, but his heart is not with you. You will vomit up the morsels you have eaten and waste your compliments. Why? Because a stingy man doesn't believe there's enough food. So what does he give you? He gives you the rotten food. Whatever a man thinks, therefore he acts. Your actions reveal your beliefs, right? And so I can look at what you're doing and tell you whether or not you believe you have a destiny. I can look at what you're doing, and I can look at your schedule, and I can show you whether or not you even believe you have a destiny in your life. Your schedule will reflect it, and what you do reflects it. I'm going to ask you guys to do something, and I don't know how many of you guys are going to do it, if I could just be honest. It's kind of a high calling, but it's completely your call. Hey, Anna, we've got 2 minutes left before we put up the slide. Don't put up the slide yet. I want to go over this last slide with everybody. Go ahead, look at the last slide. Here's a 1-year plan. Be here or watch online every Sunday. Be here or watch online every Sunday. What? The service. Why? So you could do those 6 things, those 6 steps that I told you about. You know, if you can't make, how many of you guys know that something comes up? I didn't come to church one Sunday last year. I missed you guys. I'm usually here, but if I'm not here because I'm on a vacation or something, I watch it online. I'm very interested in what goes on and what is said in this place because I believe what's said in this place is meant for my life. And so what I'm asking everybody to do is keep up with the service. Keep up with this journey that we're on together. Go through that Sunday routine, those 6 steps I told you about. Ask yourself the question, is God going to speak to me? Number 2, take notes. Number 3, highlight the notes. Number 4, take those notes, get the wisdom. 5, apply it. And that 6th step, which I didn't go over, was to share. How many of you guys know the world wants life change? The world wants spirituality. You as a Christian, somebody says, hey, how are you doing? Well, actually, I'm doing great. Why are you doing great? Well, I just changed my life. Oh, what'd you do? Oh, well, I did this. This is why I did it. The Bible says this. Pastor spoke on this. And this is why I took it in prayer. I got the wisdom. And then I applied it. So now I got it going on. How many of you guys know that's what the world wants? But we don't usually model that for the world, so they don't want what we have. And they certainly don't want church because if we don't apply what's said, they look at that and they say, it doesn't work. Why would I go to church? It doesn't work. Whether or not it works is completely up to us. Amen? Find out what the vision for your life is. If you can't get excited about it, it's probably not the vision of your life. I'm just going to use Jen Hartman as an example. I don't know what the vision for her life is. I do know that Kids Kyo kicks butt. I do know that I'm so grateful that my kid goes to this church so I can get them in that thing. I was floored when she wrote that. I do believe that's one of the good works that God had for Jen, was to write that curriculum and get that done. It's so cool. I do know that there's good work that I've done that he's prepared, but there's still good work that I need to do. So I'm excited about that. What's the vision for your life? Let's just say you're a teacher. Man, you're a teacher at a school district. How many of you guys know that you're not there to complain about what's required of you? How many of you guys know that's true? That you're called to be a light, that you're called to inspire, that you're called to encourage, and that you're called to touch lives. How many of you guys know that just doesn't happen in a day? That's not handed to you. My wife was a teacher. Nothing hard is handed to you when it comes to destiny. Do you know how intentional you have to be to encourage kids? You're expected to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and amongst A through G, you're intentional about bringing encouragement to the lives of little ones. And so somebody in here could say this: I'm called to encourage kids. And if I followed you for 2 days and wrote down every kid you encouraged, how many kids would be on that list? Do you hear what I'm saying? It doesn't happen by accident. It happens because you care so much that you make it happen. Those guys who was given the 10 talents, he was floored that he was given 10 talents. He was a slave, and the owner was saying, hey, you're a slave, I'm going to invite you up to be a business partner with me. He was so floored at the offer, he went out and immediately got 10 more. I want us to be floored by the work of Christ, that it causes us to go to work for him. Amen? Once you know what that vision is, you've got to somehow be able to figure out how to work on that vision 1 hour a day. It might sound like a lot to you, but so is destiny. Destiny is not free. You will pay your dues, especially up front. Some of you need to know some things that you don't currently know. Some of you need to meet some people you haven't currently met. And some of you need to start grow in relationships. And some of you need to get better at your gifting and what your craft is. How many of you guys know that if you don't practice your craft, you don't get better at it? You know what I get excited about? I get excited every month. I get to go to New Life for Girls and speak there, and I get excited because every time I go and speak, I get better at speaking. How many of you guys know that I still need to get better at speaking than I currently do? Is that true? And there's only this much room to grow in that area for me. Oh, I need to close the gap on that thing. And it's just, and not only that, but I need, if I'm saying this, I need God's wisdom. Guess what I need to be doing? I need to be spending time in prayer. If I need doors to open up, I need to figure out how to humble myself even lower so that I can be exalted and put in a place. You know that? God bless you guys. Thank you for hearing that. Thank you for letting me speak. I know this stuff can be sensitive. And oftentimes we live in such a private society, we don't see each other's fields. Do you know what I mean by that? We don't see each other's lives, so we don't know the condition of your field. And we kind of keep that private. But man, I want to live in a society that's very vulnerable with that stuff and is able to admit, hey man, my field's a mess. I need help. How do you clean this thing up? My finances are messy. I need help. Man, my diet is out of control. I need help. I don't know what my destiny is. I need help. Whatever it is, my family's wrecked. I need help. I need wisdom. And that we'd be vulnerable enough and that we'd honor each other enough to be able to go to each other and get the knowledge that we need. Or be able to go to somebody and have them show us in the Word where it's at. All right, everybody stand up. Will Hart said something at the Focus conference this year. He said, if you think that this year is going to be any different than last year, without you doing something different, he said, you are deceived. How many of you guys believe that's true? You can just grow so accustomed to the blessings you have in your life and where you're at in life that it just becomes normal. How many of you guys want normal? I don't want normal. But I'm also not deceived. I know that I need to put in the work to have what God has for me to come down the pike. And I'm just plugging YPI one more time. How many of you guys have teenagers? Whatever it takes. I'm serious. Like, well, we need to be united as a body to do whatever it takes to get those teens there. It's gonna take money. It is, and how many of you guys know that that's worth it? That's probably a stepping stone on the way to their destiny. It's worth the cost. So it's just, I'm so glad. Brian and Grace, thank you guys so much for just having passion around that and setting that up. It's going to be huge. We're excited for that. The other thing that we're going to try to do as a church, and I might be saying this prematurely, so forgive me, but we want to take missions trips to go out to Loaves and Fishes, to the orphanage out in China, once every 3 years, and we want to go out down and help Nick Billman with his street ministry to the prostitutes once every 3 years, and have a rotation of that stuff. So that's exciting. Is that premature? I don't know. That's what we plan on doing. It's out. So let's bow our heads and let's just, Lord, there are some people in here, like myself, that need your focus. I need your focus so much. Lord, I need to be more diligent with where I'm going in my life. I want to bring you so much glory that in this life I become like you, so that when I stand before you that I can have confidence. God, and I just thank you. Some people in here, Lord, they don't know what the vision of their life is. And Lord, I hope that's not an excuse anymore not to get alone and ask. Lord, what is it that you have for me? And Lord, no matter what the size is that we would attack that thing with everything we got. If it's for you, I'm in. If it means that I get to destroy the works of the enemy with my life, I'm all in. Lord, and so I just bless people in here with vision and the knowledge and the application of what it looks like to hack away at that thing for the rest of their lives. In Jesus' name, amen. Hey, God bless.